right, what is going on, everybody? We are live again. Took about a week off, but now we're back at it. How's everybody feeling?
Good.
Absolutely stoked.
Yeah.
Good.
Same here. I'm excited to get this one going because I think this is a really interesting topic. 5 mistakes men make in their 20s. And I think this is interesting because we're all different age groups. So I think we can all offer like different perspectives. I know some of us are a little younger. I'm kind of entering the tail end of my 20s. So I have a kind of interesting perspective on it. I know Ryan's a little bit younger. So it's kind of give a broad range of perspectives for this one. And what I have is just a list of like my top 5. So what I was thinking would be cool is I give my 5, maybe you guys can chime in, give 5 points that you have, or just, bounce off of what the other person's saying. I think it'd be a cool little dynamic today. And just kind of seeing where things flow. So let me pull up my list. So I got 5 things written down here, and these are no particular order. I don't think there's one more important than the rest. But since I wrote this one down first, I will say it first. First thing I have here is when you're in your 20s, men that worry about chasing girls over chasing excellence or purpose or working on themselves. This was definitely one that I had. I remember when I entered my 20s, that was like all I cared about was getting a girlfriend, making sure I got laid, met women, etc. That was the only thing really on my mind. And I kind of neglected myself. I didn't know what self-improvement was until I was about Ryan's age. I was like 23, 24. And then I started getting into this stuff. But before that, it was all about women. And I kind of wasted a lot of years there, potentially improving myself just because I was like so focused on girls that it kind of left me a little bit, a little off track. So that's the first one I got. Did you guys want to bounce off of that, or do you want to share one of your top ones?
That's actually one of my top ones as well. And I believe most of us will agree on it. Most young men, especially in their early 20s, are primarily partying. They're chasing women. They wanna get easy fixes and quick drills. They just want to hook up. They want to waste their time partying. They want to enjoy life. And obviously that's the biggest time waster. That's the most detrimental thing you can do in your early 20s, because when you use that time from your 20s to your 30s to build yourself, you're so further than you ever could. Like you're having a 10-year head start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also have partying, and it's not to say that you can't like enjoy yourself. Like, oh, it's my birthday. Like, okay, like, or like, oh, I'm going on, a vacation. Like, okay, but like every weekend, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. Like, come on, man, you don't need to be doing that. And like the same vein, while yes, you need to be building something, I guess kind of something I want to remind people is like, don't get lost in purpose, because like some people, I think they just go into like a shell, and it's almost like a defense mechanism. It's like, I'm just going to work on myself. And then it's like, I need $1 million before I can start talking to girls, or I need to have 6-pack abs before I can start talking to girls. And then they get the 6-pack, and then they're like, oh, I need to be bigger. And then I need to make 2 million. And then it's like, they're 40 years old and they're rich and they're handsome and they're whatever, but like they're still afraid to talk to girls because they never just started talking to them. So like that's the one thing I would say is like, if you see a pretty girl at the grocery store, at the gym, whatever, just go talk to her. It doesn't need to be like at a bar or anything like that.
I'd like to link in right there because Ryan said it, and it is important, and it's also a point I have noted down to that they have the wrong priorities, which also goes back to partying. Partying and prioritizing hooking up are wrong priorities. But as Ryan said, it's important to also have some sort of balance. Like obviously that balance looks different for all of us, because I know when I wasn't so far in my personal and emotional development, I actually used the work or the self-improvement as an outlet, or like I was constantly working to actually distract myself from the emotions. And that is why balance is so important. You need time for yourself, you need the time to reflect, to process all those things, but also just quality time with friends, maybe you have a girlfriend already, quality time with her, but it's all about how much of your time you dedicate to it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I'll add on to that real quick too. It's important for men to also have some kind of social network in their life, because I mean, it could be a very lonely journey that I'm sure some of you guys probably experience this too, where you're grinding, you're doing your thing, and you feel like maybe the people around you or the people you grew up with aren't on the same level. So you're like, man, I'm doing this alone. You feel like you're kind of the only person who's trying to better themselves. And that can be a very lonely journey. So I do think that there is a level of, community that needs to happen for you to really take your development to the next level, whether that's finding brothers who are on the same vibe, connecting with people at your local gym, connecting with people at chamber of commerce events where there's like-minded people, business-minded people. That's super, super important. And I do think that you don't want to get into the point where you're shutting out society or shutting out people completely because, I'm just on my purpose, I'm doing me, I'm isolated. I think that does more harm than it does good. But at the same time, you do need to like lock in and kind of do your thing. But like Manuel and Ryan are saying, there is a certain balance that you need to have.
Yeah, I would add actually like maybe also sort of looking at it in terms of at what stage you're in at your life. I think your early 20s will be completely different to your late 20s. So, I mean, I do have some regrets of like things. I mean, I'm 34, so I can look back at, okay, what did I do when I was 21, 22, and compared to what did I do when I was 27? And I believe a very important thing for most men in their 20s is to realize that if you're doing the same things at the age of 27, drinking a lot, while and you're doing essentially the same things that we were doing at the age of 21, drinking a lot, then something's going the wrong direction. If your friends haven't evolved, if your circle of your network hasn't evolved, I know your career, your interests, if they're still the same or have marginally changed, then if we focus on the drinking part, then something's clearly going wrong. And if I look at how all the stupid shit that I've done when I was young, in my young 20s, like I think drinking, if you stop drinking, or if you find a healthy balance, it can save you a lot of pain, a lot of money, and as you guys already said, it can give you a massive head start.
To add on to that, something I've noticed. So I graduated college a year ago, and what I see a lot is like college relationships, and I think that those relationships can be like healthy and good and like sincere and like genuine like love and all that. But like then you graduate and you go to grad school, you go to work, and it seems like not a lot of college relationships, even the ones that you would think would work out, they don't end up actually working out. It's such a volatile light, like such a volatile time in each of y'all's lives. You're trying to get work, you're trying to build yourself, yada yada yada. So I don't see a lot of those working. But the point I'm trying to get to is like, while it's, you're 21, you're 22, you're 23, and it's like it's cool to be drinking, it's cool to go out every weekend and have fun, but at the snap of a finger, like you're 25, you're 26, and then everyone's like, dude, get your shit together. What are you doing? Why are you haven't done anything? So that's like the transition, and especially women too, because like honestly, the women I've met, they have so much more drive than what I see from the guys. Like these women are like, oh, I'm studying biology to be a fucking, a doctor, and like this and that. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I can hang out. I got to do this, 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 and this. And it's like, Jesus. And they're like going to the gym, and they're like meal prep, and they're doing all these crazy things. And it's like, from the guys that I see, it's like they might go to the gym, but they don't go super seriously or anything like that. So it's just another like indication of how much like women are like in their like masculine energy, and they're just, I'm honestly impressed by it. But it's like it does cause friction within relationships.
That's a really good point. I've noticed that too, where there's a lot of younger women, not even just younger women, just women in their 20s in general. In a lot of ways, they're outperforming men in a lot of categories, like going, like Ryan said, going to the gym, making sure their money's right, working on themselves. And then I look at the average 20-year-old guy, and he's watching Netflix all day. He's playing video games. He's not doing any of those things. And it's just like, that doesn't seem right. Like there needs to be some kind of like ambition on our end. So I agree with that. It kind of leads into my second point that I have here, which is in your 20s, men that spend money on liabilities, not on assets. And what I mean by that is essentially the Netflix thing. Like, guys are more invested into that instead of using that money for a gym membership. Or, you know what, I'm paying for OnlyFans, but I could be paying for a course or some kind of like self-improvement book or something. You're spending money on going out every weekend, buying drinks, instead of spending that on, something that's going to better your health or better your mindset in some way. But that's a big one. I see a lot of young guys blow money on stupid shit that doesn't last or isn't fulfilling. And then they wonder in 5 years, where'd all my money go and why am I still behind? So that is a huge one. Like, spend your money on things that you're going to get a return on. That's a positive.
Same goes for clothing and cars.
Oh,
So
yeah.
many young men, they want to be fashionate. I do understand it, right? But they're buying expensive things, maybe even designer clothes, Prada and whatever they're called, those brands. They like, most young men buy cars that cost like 20 to 30K. Maybe they get the money from somewhere, right? But it's wasted money completely.
Yep.
And it's like you said, it's the wrong priority. Like, if you would invest that money, 30K, into yourself by getting yourself a mentor, just imagine where you would be.
Mm-hmm.
Think of what I started with was what you said, like courses and like books. And books can be cheap as hell, like $10.
Very.
So if you're spending $50 to $100 on like a sweet shirt to increase your swag, and you could buy like 5 to 10 books, and it's like, oh, I don't like to read, but it's like, if you find like a weak spot, like everyone has like a pain point or a weak spot. If you find a book on that and you just commit to reading like 5 pages a day and you start actually applying that, you're going to see improvements in your life, and you're going to start realizing stuff. And then you're going to start to get addicted to that improvement. And that will, 5 years down the line, will pay off, while that shirt that you wanted, you probably won't even have anymore. You wear it, 2 or 3 times, and then it's just a shirt. It's not even that cool anymore. So yeah, I totally agree. Like, buy some books. Like, even if you don't like reading, I promise you, just test it out. You might start a few and not like them. That's fine. But just commit to it and start buying some books.
If you don't like reading, you don't even need to buy books. Like, you have Audible and stuff, Like, I used to, when I was working on a construction yard, I was driving up roads a lot, like 3-4 hours car drives. Bro, just drop in an audiobook. I consumed so many books that way in a year that you could never read in that time, So again, if people don't want to read, just go for audiobooks or even podcasts, man. Like, good podcasts, 10 to 15 minutes is better than, just wasting your time. And you can do those things while doing normal work, while you're cooking, while you're doing laundry or whatever. You can just plug it in and listen to it.
YouTube too. Like, if you're cooking or whatever, like, yeah, YouTube videos can be very, very helpful. That's like the new like education system, YouTube. It's all on.
It definitely is. That's why I just started getting into audiobooks myself, and I've always read, but like Manuel said, it saves so much time. If you don't want to sit down and actually read a physical book, you can literally pop in an audiobook, 20 minutes to you're driving your car, or like you're cooking, or you're even at the gym. I've done that before, where I'm at the gym, I'm on the treadmill after I get done, 30 minutes, I just pop in an audiobook. It's that simple. You get so much information so quickly.
I think I'm gonna add like maybe a few experiences from how I've wasted my money in my 20s. as a sort of reminder of what it looks like, you know. And so if I look back I was earning quite good money at the age of 17, 18 because I was a bartender, and I got a commission from the money I brought in for the bar, right? So I was earning, I know, like without, I mean, it's way too late for the fucking government to tax me on that anyway. So I was making, as an 18-year-old, I was making around 3 to 4K a month, right? That's a massive amount of money for an 18-year-old. And yeah, I just bought stuff, you know. I mean, I was also starting to invest into stocks and shit, but I was just bought fucking stuff, man. At some point, I just had, like, you know, I determined myself, like my self-worth was derived of clothes. So I was like, I'm gonna have the latest designer brands, and it reached a point where I wasted it all on like going out, drugs, not drugs, alcohol, booze. And then, like, you could literally, I was opening my my closet, and there were literally t-shirts for $60-$70 with the tag still on it because I never wore them. And absolutely stupid, right? And so, like, I could tell you that most of the stuff you buy, you will not wear it in a year's or 2 years time, right? 90% of the things, clothes. So that actually means it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. And like, it took me a long time to learn my lesson. So even when I was 24, so when I was doing my master's in London, I was like surrounded by all these people who were like fucking rich, you know. Like one guy said, "Oh, I'm collecting Bentleys as a hobby." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, how weird are you? Like, you're like collecting like small cars? Like, when are you growing up?" And he was like, no. And then he showed me pictures. Like, had like fucking 8 Bentleys at home, you know.
Wow.
Like, fuck. So going out with these people, you're like, okay, I went into this business school because I want to network, right? But like going out with them, like, it was fucking expensive, right? We went to the most expensive clubs. Shot was $10 for one shot, and you're like, fuck. And yeah, at some point I was spending way more than I could afford, and like, because I was fucking retarded, I essentially sold like stock. I sold equity. At that time, I bought Tesla. It was 2013. I had Netflix, Tesla, Amazon, right? Those 3 stocks, and I had sold most of it almost because I had to tap into that money. How stupid is that? Like, I watched Tesla go up and up over the coming years in order to remind myself how fucking painful that decision was in terms of money missed out on. Like, I think if I would have left that, like, at that time I had like 10,000 or so in Tesla, that would have been 100K or something, 150K easily by now. So that's how much money I missed out on or lost, right? So in a nutshell, like, the regret of having wasted that money, like, is a great fuel for me now, or like the last couple of years, to really go hard. But it was some of the most stupid decisions in my 20s.
Yeah, that Tesla stock hurts, man. Even hearing that.
Yeah, man.
Even Amazon, like,
yeah,
where Amazon was 10 years ago, like, they're huge now.
Yeah, man. I was really into investing, you know, but I was like, I'm gonna go out with these guys. I'm gonna spend, I guess, $500 to $700. Yeah, fuck. So I have to sell some of my stock, and then, like, over time, over the year, yeah, man, fuck it. Man, still painful, you know. Anyways, that's so that's why I can like what you guys are saying. Like, it's just an absolute, like, if you are, it might not be painful in that moment, but it's going to be painful in 5 years. And then that's when you start realizing, shit, man, imagine where I could be right now, you know?
Delayed gratification is always better than instant gratification. Really comes down to that. What do I want now versus what do I want most?
100%. I'll share a quick story about my spendings when I was younger too. same kind of thing. I would just spend it on. So me and my friends would always like every weekend we did the same exact thing. We'd sit up in a shed, which was it's a nice little pad because it was like my friend made it and it was like furnished and everything. It had television and had games up there. We'd sit up there every weekend, get blazed, get high as fuck, maybe bring some girls over, whatever, do some dumb stuff, and then we'd go on a Sheets run. So if you guys don't know what Sheets is, it's like a gas station that serves food, and it's basically like, I don't know if they have stuff like that out in Europe and whatnot, but it's basically like, I don't know even how to compare it. It's like a gas station, but a convenience store at the same time. So we would do that at like 2 a.m. and spend dumb amounts of money on food, which we already had back at the house. So all this stuff would just be wasted. And then like the next day, $50 gone, $100 gone on shit that literally lasted 3 seconds. So it's just dumb like that. And once I started getting into my mid-20s, I started investing into things that would eventually pay me back long term. So like when I graduated, I got a bunch of money from my graduation from school, and every single dollar of that, literally every single dollar of that went into a program or went into my next education, which was first thing I got into was a coaching program to just kind of teach me about coaching, understand it, which looking back, hindsight 2020, probably didn't need to be in a program like that just because you don't really need to like educate yourself on that stuff, at least the program that I was in. But at the time, I was like, okay, this is something that is actually worthwhile. Let me use this money towards something useful, not on, stupid shit that doesn't last more than a night.
Tino, you and me, we had the exact same experience because back in like high school,
Yep.
same exact thing, smoking weed. I'd spend all my fucking money for my friend too, because we were boys since like second grade. So like, and he didn't have a job, so I would spend my money because I didn't want him to feel left out. Bumming cigarettes, and again, it was Sheets. We'd walk a mile, ride our bikes, and then once we got cars, we would go take our cars down there. Sometimes girls, and like people had sheds. It was like either basements or sheds that we would just hang out in, and it was like it was a waste. I never saw that money again. That friend never paid me back.
Never.
Yeah.
That must be a PA thing, dude, because I feel like that's only a Pennsylvania thing.
And I grew up in a small town. Like the best thing to do on a Friday night was go to Sheets. Sheets was the hangout spot. Like
it sure was.
A gas station.
Freaking gas station.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like I think like the young guys, they should make their experiences, right? There should be a line, there should be a cut-off line almost to say like, okay, I've tried it, but I don't want to get fucking stuck here. And I think it always comes back down to I think it was one of the books, what's it called? 7 Habits or something. I don't fucking know what the name is. Stephen Covey.
Highly effective people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the one, Manu. And it's like with the end in mind, like what the fuck do you actually want from life, But I think it comes down to lack of guidance. Like, where the fuck do you want to go? I think that's why Andrew Tate was so popular, because he gave like the young guys, or Hamza, like giving them a bit of a direct or like guidance on initiation into like, hey, there's a bit more to life than just your fucking video games and like obsessing over some Instagram, like Insta bitches, And I think for me, at least, that was lacking. And then, so I think it's good to make those experiences, but at some point you have to grow up and think about what the fuck do you want from life, and think further than the next 12 months, and maybe even look into like, try to connect to other guys, and then I think that will help you find your North Star. I think that's so important. I mean, getting a bit off tangent, or like on a bit drifting a bit off, but I think like the biggest mistake also is not knowing your limits and not knowing where you actually want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, and I think that it kind of ties into one of the points I have here also. But I wanted to speak on like everything that we're saying for those of you that are watching. everything that we're mentioning, these mistakes, like you're probably going to do them, whether maybe you're just unaware, maybe you're too young to even like know better. It's going to happen. We all make mistakes. That's kind of the whole point of this. Like we had to learn the hard way and go through it. But the idea is the mistakes that you make in your 20s should not be the same mistakes you make in your 30s. Like you should learn from it by then. Because if you're still making the same mistakes 10 years later, I'm not going to say you're fucked, because you're not. You can always improve, but you're definitely setting yourself up for failure, and you're behind because you're not learning and getting better.
And you're purposefully choosing it. Like if you make the same mistake
Right.
over and over again, it's not a mistake anymore, it's a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which kind of leads into my third point here, of the different mistakes that I made. This is going to sound kind of controversial because I know guys don't like to talk about this, but not asking for help. I think that's a massive one that I made. I made a huge mistake of, like, guys get maybe too much into their ego and they think, oh, I don't need help. I don't need anybody to show me what to do. I got it. I'll figure it out. And I know even as men, we kind of feel this need to feel competent, even when we don't actually know what the hell we're doing. We just fake it. Like, yeah, I know where to go. But meanwhile, you're super lost and you have no clue what's going on. So there is a level of like burden, I think, that comes with having to make it seem like you know what's going on or seem like you have it all together, which most of us don't. I mean, let's be honest. Like everybody has a mentor at some point. Somebody has someone showing us what to do, whether that's a teacher, a parent, a friend, maybe that's further along than you. That was a big one for me, was putting the ego aside and be like, yo, I need some help in this area. I need somebody to kind of show me the ropes.
Because if you don't, you're just wasting a lot of time. You're trying to figure it out, yeah, it's okay. Maybe, you're figuring it out, trial and error. Maybe you get there, but why not get help in the first place? You simply got to accept that there are people who know better than you, and there are people who you can learn from something. And it's hard. Again, you also said it. You had difficulties, and I had difficulties as well. And I believe it's for many men, it has something to do with a lot of pride also, but also insecurities. As you said, they don't want to be seen as incompetent or weak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's I'm reading a lot about the male brain at the moment. I think I suggested it in a group as well, by the way, a different group. And I think it comes down to the way men or guys' brains are wired and their testosterone levels, especially in the early 20s, when the T levels are like hopefully going through the roof, unless you're like
unless you're drinking beer.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's this, because so many guys are so unaware, and it comes back to, again, lack of guidance. They have no idea what's actually driving them to make specific decisions, like unconscious decisions. And I think that's why their brain is not wired to get help. Plus, you throw in social conditioning. Asking for help is bad. And I think that's why it is holding men back, or boys back, so much. Because if you actually compare it to girls, and you talked about it earlier, how more advanced or ahead girls are, it just like it puts them at such a disadvantage. It's massive. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually mad. You have women, like girls are getting a head start now because they're being offered more support. And then you've got guys who are like completely isolating themselves and then saying, I don't need fucking help because I am this tough guy. I'm Sigma, or whatever they fucking call it nowadays. I watched a bit too much Fresh and Fit and Hamza. And I think that puts them into this perpetual cycle of, like, it's a downward spiral from there.
And asking for help is how you build those like deeper connections, like especially if it's like somebody your age. Like me and my friends, like we ask each other for help on various different things. We all have like different talents, but that's really how you like really connect, because like giving that help, that makes them appreciate you more than they give you help on something. So having those high quality friends and asking for help from them not only accelerates your growth, but it also deepens that connection. That is like a form of intimacy, I guess.
You made a good point there, like asking for help from the right people. Because you can also, if you've got shitty friends, you're gonna get shitty advice, right? And then you're in this downward spiral again. But how can you encourage the guys to ask for help? How can you make them aware that help is actually needed? How did you let go of your ego, actually? Yeah, go ahead, man.
It's up to them, you know. It goes back. It's very funny because it's actually very simple. It all comes back to the famous quote of "You have to leave your comfort zone." It's so stupid and simple that it's actually complicated for most. You know, you're doing what you know. You're doing what you're used to. Not asking for help because that's in your comfort zone. That's what you feel safe with. And, you know, asking for help makes you vulnerable. It exposes you. It gets you out of the comfort zone. And that's what people are struggling with. And it all comes back. You just got to do what's outside of your comfort zone. You just got to do what's uncomfortable for you.
I agree with that.
And of course, affirmations are also something, you know. If you tell yourself, oh, okay, I'm weak for asking for help. Oh, I shouldn't be asking for help. Oh, I should know this by myself. It's self-defeating. So using those affirmations that you're not weak for asking help, that you're not incompetent for asking help, is also essential.
Yeah, I also think it's like a mindset shift that needs to happen too, and kind of a perspective around getting help, because I don't think any guy should think, oh, I should know everything by now. I should have this figured out. My life should be perfect. I should be a millionaire, should be jacked, etc. A lot of people aren't. I mean, if you're not in that category, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's just that you don't necessarily have the skill set yet, the mindset, the habits, the wisdom to create those things. And if there's somebody that has it, most likely they could show you how. So it's kind of a mindset shift I think needs to happen. And to Gene's point too, you do want to be careful who you ask help from, because some people won't actually help you. They'll tell you something that they think is helpful, or they'll propose themselves as someone that knows better, but they might lead you astray. So I think that maybe comes into play also, where guys maybe have reservation because maybe they've been burned in the past. They had somebody who maybe screwed them over, bad business deal, or a friend that, hey, said, hey, yeah, I got your back, bro, but then like ended up stabbing him in the back. So there's that, I think, that exists. But like Manuel says, you kind of have to, it's like trusting someone. Like you really only gain trust by first trusting them and kind of seeing how it unfolds. Like you do have to be vulnerable to a sense. There is a level of like letting yourself just put yourself out there to see what happens. And I think there's power in that, even though it might not always lead to the best outcome.
Feel you, man.
Yeah. You guys have anything else to add on that, or do you guys want to move on to the next one?
Nothing to add from myself.
Same.
Cool. So, I mean, the fourth one honestly kind of ties into what we're saying right now that I have written down here, is neglecting self-awareness and reflection. That was a massive one. That was probably one of the biggest, besides like spending money on stupid shit when I was younger, in my 20s, like early 20s. That was a big one. Like I had no time for self-reflection. I had no time for myself. And I was always surrounded by other people and always in groups, always doing stuff. And I think that just causes so much blurriness in what's important to you. Because you're constantly around other people and they're giving you their opinions, their ideas, their thoughts on things. it's a good thing to have because you want different perspectives. But if that's all you spend, if that's the only environment you see yourself in, then how are you going to create your own opinions? How are you going to create your own thoughts and unique ideas and perspectives? You're not, because you're always influenced by other people. So like that's one that you got to spend just dedicated time alone.
I just came up with this and I'm super proud of it, but the noise comes out in the silence. So it's the silence that's when all the little thoughts in your head, that's when they come out. It's not when you're even just listening to the radio, it's not when you're getting drunk, it's not when you're doing XYZ. It's like it comes out in the silence. And that's where my journey all really started, was like just writing out like things I'm ashamed of and like behaviors that like irritate me, and just like accepting them and like letting them go, simply writing them out and just like accepting it. That was like huge. Who would have thought that's all it really takes to like really get started? But writing, one of the most undervalued skills I think in the world, and it all comes back to that self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan just turned into
go ahead.
I just said Ryan just quickly turned into Plato. I like it.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's a good one.
I was about to say that if you never write down your thoughts, they're never really structured, you know, like because you have all those. Yeah, I've looked it up because I wrote in my book about it, and we have like over 3,000 thoughts per hour. And you know, people just have to think about, okay, how many of them am I catching? Are you gonna catch all of them? Never. And that's also not healthy, you know. You would go full blown insane. But it's often the subconscious things that hold us back so much. And only if we would write them down or take time, you know, you can also do it with a walk or meditation. It's only when we really block out the outer noise and remain in silence when we can actually hear this and when we can actually structure our thoughts.
To add to that too, I think I saw this about a year ago. There's a psychological statistic that said, so with your thoughts, you think, I think what Manuel was saying with the amount of thoughts that you have in a day. I also read that it's like 80%, I think, or maybe 90% of the thoughts that we have are the same thoughts we have every day, which is pretty mind blowing. Like we might not even realize it, but if you're thinking about something like, I don't know, going to the gym or starting that business or whatever, most likely you're probably thinking about it every single day. Like your thoughts are very similar every day. There might be some variations, but majority of them are the same. So if you take note of that, and like Manuel says, write that stuff down, you'll notice a pattern. Oh, wow, I keep thinking about improving my money and my finances. Like, what can I do to find a job? How can I improve my career? How can I, get this part of my life figured out? There's something that's going on. But if you spend all your time with other people or in front of a TV screen or, at the movies and you're never alone with your thoughts, then you're never going to figure this stuff out. So that was a huge one. I always advocate going on solo walks. Like I'll go to the park or I'll like walk outside, like down my street, just by myself with no phones, no technology, nobody with me, just because I need that time to I just need that time for myself to think, to like really let my thoughts create solutions. Because I think that's another important point with your brain. If you ask yourself questions and say, man, how do I figure this out? How do I come up with a solution here? Your brain's going to come up with an answer. But if you're constantly like, oh man, I don't know what to do, this is a problem, how do I fix this? You're only feeding yourself inputs of negativity, and you're only going to create more problems. So you have to ask yourself good questions.
Without that self-reflection, you probably won't realize how mean you are to yourself. You probably you're probably pretty negative and like hard on yourself, and you're not fair to yourself. You have to be your best friend. And simply having positive self-talk is like really, really helpful. Like no self-deprecating jokes, and believing that you can achieve what you want to achieve, even if maybe not right in this moment, but with some work and some dedication, I can do this. Like just simply having that belief goes a long way.
That reminds me of an exercise I did when I started with self-improvement and working with affirmations. It's like an exercise that you just sit down and write down all affirmations that come into your head. Like you're thinking about yourself and you write down everything that comes into your mind. You're like, man, I like literally only had negatives, not a single positive.
Mm. That's true.
I have a bit of a, like I agree with you guys to some extent with in terms of like journaling and trying to make give structure to your thoughts. But the more I've done this work on thoughts and like becoming more conscious, the less I actually journal now. Because the reason is whenever I journal and I see, because I think Tino mentioned something similar. 80% of our thoughts are negative, just by nature. Survival instinct to help us prevent us from doing shit and whatever. And I noticed that sometimes you just write down so many negative things. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that you start seeing, okay, there are so many negative things that are popping in my head, and then you get attached to them. And what has really changed my perspective on thoughts are two things, like Joe Dispenza, and Alan Watts. And I think Alan Watts asked, I think one of his questions blew my mind was, if you are listening to your thoughts, who is creating them? Right? And what I'm trying to say with that is, thoughts are just fucking thoughts, right? Like, no one else is hearing it. You don't know what I'm hearing right now. So coming back to the self-reflection perspective is like, sometimes I feel like it's just okay to accept that there are so many random thoughts and I just let them be. Mm-hmm. I don't give them meaning. I don't give them attention. And that has helped me become like I feel much freer now. But I am not sure if it is a good idea to go to this approach right away, or if it's actually, you can only use this effectively if you have journaled and if you've tested, if you've worked your way up there. And by all means, I'm not saying that I'm like some superhuman or whatever. It's simply an approach that is working for me right now. And I haven't heard many people talk about this. So I might be absolutely wrong with this. But what are you guys thinking about what I just shared?
Yeah, absolutely agree. And many thoughts are just thoughts, Some thoughts, I do believe that some thoughts are really our intuition, that some thoughts are really guidance. For example, like Tino said, I believe the example with money or business, if you're struggling financially and it's constantly in your head, it's obviously a sign that you need to do something. But then again, we have those random thoughts that are absolutely insignificant. It's similar to dreams, Dreams are sometimes your subconsciousness telling you something, but dreams are sometimes just dreams, meaningless, just crazy random stuff. And it's the same for thoughts.
To me, I think it's like what you said, there's levels to this. So I think starting with the journaling, I think that's necessary to gain that self-awareness and that consciousness. And then once you've done that for a while, then it does transition into a place where it's like, I understand myself and I know where I want to go. I know who I am, what I want to be. I know my priorities. So if these thoughts don't serve me, or if these thoughts aren't correct, or they're just not helpful, then just let them go and just ignore them. Accept that you thought it, but then try to change that. Don't try to don't beat yourself up for thinking something, and work on, I guess, changing your perspective, because everything is perspective in life. That's something that kind of blows my mind too, is you can go through life seeing things as work and play, or you can go through life seeing everything as play, even work, just attack everything like it's fun, and you'll have a lot more fun doing it. If you're just ain't nothing to it but to do it, just enjoy yourself. I don't know, you got to enjoy your own company. That's another thing that people need to learn how to do. But that's a side topic.
It reminds me a little bit on the, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but the feedback loop of hell. I'm not sure the author, but I know the book. It's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I believe, or Ego is the Enemy, one of those two books. And he describes the feedback loop of hell. And it's basically, in, like Ryan said, beating yourself down for something. Like, let's say you're upset, and then you become upset because you're upset. Or you're angry, and then you become angry because you're angry. You know, it's pointless.
But you know, like I think Tino mentioned it. I think that's something the guys should walk away with from listening to this, aside from all the other points. But I think this one stands out for me, is like, if you have like a question that really needs to be answered, like if you face a challenge, a business challenge, I don't fucking know what it is. I think it's always good to sort of ask yourself the question, like, oh, what could I do differently before you go to bed, or like in the evening? Because from the research I've done, your subconscious will try to find answers while you sleep. And then that's why there's the saying, sleep over it. Because that's when your subconscious brain waves are activated. So I think that's actually can solve a lot of problems. If you sit just before you go to bed, actually ask yourself, like, okay, these are one or two questions I want to answer. Let's see. And then you maybe wake up with some genius solutions.
It's like shower thoughts. Like sometimes I'll ask myself, like I'll be like, content creation. Like I'll be trying to think of like, okay, what do I want to create? And like, I'll have like a couple of topics, and then you can go for a walk, or you can go to the gym or whatever. And then like in the middle of a workout, I'll be thinking, like, I could be like squatting or something, and I'll be like, oh, that's an idea. And then like, I'll remember it and I'll write it down in my notes, and then I'll just keep on going. And it's like, yeah, it's not like I just sit down and like, okay, what am I going to make this week? It happens naturally. Yeah, those shower thoughts.
Yeah. That's the funny thing about it. It's such a paradox, because the more we try and think about something, the less we can really focus in on it. Like this is what content creation helped me, I guess, realize about my brain and just myself. Like the more I try to think about what is the topic, what am I going to mention, what am I going to talk about, the less I have ideas. But when I'm like, I step away from it and I'm doing something like this happens to me all the time. I'll be like, I don't know, I'm at the gym or I'm walking down the street somewhere, and then like, boom, an idea hits me. I'm like, oh shit, that's a good idea. And I write it down. I make sure it's ready. But it's not when I'm actively thinking about it. It just kind of comes to you.
That's why it's so important to take notes, man. Like if you're on the go, always use your phone to write notes, or when you're in bed, for example. Like when I go to sleep, almost every day I have like pop idea after idea, and constantly need to stand up and write something down. And that's very, very important, because you're gonna forget it, and you forget it for years. Like you have to. I listened to a podcast, and it was from someone very successful in my area, and he said like he needs to write it down, because maybe when you sleep and your brain is it's lowering the wavelength, and you're more relaxed and you're more creative, and then you have those thoughts. And for example, you come up with a great business idea and you don't write it down, and it's gone for years, and then after 3, 4, 5 years you maybe get that thought again. So it's very, very important to write them down.
And just to like highlight how intense writing things down is, I have 3 separate whiteboards to my right here. I have my notes app with like 8 different folders and like multiple different notes in each app. And then I have like a long text to myself. Like I text myself throughout the day too. Like I have so many different ways of memorizing stuff. And I'm also a Post-it note slut. I love Post-it notes.
Dude, literally, that's exactly, I mean, notes, sticky notes, got notes on my phone right here. I mean, same thing. That's how you remember stuff. That's facts, dude. Yeah, those are all really good points. I think it really, it pays to write stuff down. I know me and Joe were talking about this on a podcast, and he told me a stat that said less than 3% of people write their goals down, or write their thoughts down on a daily basis. And I was like, kind of mind blown because how small of a statistic that was. 3%, and then 1% of people actually review what they wrote down. So even if you just do that on its own, that puts you in a league of your own. And I think that gives you a huge advantage towards anything you're trying to do. So I'll move on to the last point I have here, which kind of ties into everything we've been talking about nicely, which was in your 20s. This happens to pretty much every guy and everybody in their 20s, really. Sticking to people that they know or their friend group that they've been friends with, let's say from high school on, or just their childhood friend group, let's say they stick with that group. And this is kind of a controversial one too, because I know a lot of people have separation anxiety, where they feel like they can't leave their current friend group, or they can't go beyond the people that they know, that they're just stuck to their hometown, they're stuck to the people that grew up with, etc. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, you can literally change your environment at any point, and you really don't have to you don't have to feel bad about it, because if let's say you're leveling up and you're trying to improve yourself, and the people that you're surrounded by are people that are here and they're not trying to go up with you, well, what ends up inevitably happening? It's that crabs in the bucket theory. They see you rising and they're going to want to try and pull you back down to their level, because your success is almost a reflection of their lack of success. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but for most people, they don't even consciously maybe know this, but seeing somebody else improve, and especially somebody that's close to them or been in their situation before, if they see you moving up and they're not, it's only going to make them more insecure. So it's important to get around other people that fit the future that you want to have for yourself. People that are smarter than you, better than you, more successful than you. And you can maybe still hang out with these people that you knew maybe once in a while, but you want to limit your time with them, because if they're not on the same path, it's only going to keep you in that headspace. And I've had a lot of experience doing this. I've had a lot of people where I've known them for a period of time, or we've gotten close, and I kept going, and they kind of stay where they're at, or they try to pull me back. And it's tough. It's not an easy situation to be in, but I think if you really want to grow and reach your ultimate potential, then there are some people that you need to cut off or spend a lot less time with.
I agree. That's one of the points I have is keeping the dead weight is like a mistake that guys make. So just hanging on to low quality people. And even if a person was good for you at one point, not every relationship is supposed to last forever. Right. So not necessarily like pushing people away, but if you know that they're not good for you, let them go, because you have to let them go before the proper person can come into your life. So in like high school, I played football and lacrosse, and like I always wanted to sit with the jocks, because like from an early age, like I would watch movies and stuff, and I always wanted to be like the football player or whatever, like dating like the cheerleader and whatever. So I would sit with at the lunch table with the jocks, but that wasn't like, I didn't really get along with them too well. And I just did that for years. And like, they weren't really my friends. I never hung out with them or anything, but I was just like attached to that. And then it was like junior or senior year, I let go of that. And then I found like actual real friends in high school. And the same thing in college, freshman year, nobody really knows anybody, and everyone's just scrambling for friends. So I had freshman year friends, and then we moved in together, and then we ended up like hating each other. And for a while there, I had no friends. And then I met my current like best friends that I would die for, in the gym. But for a while there, like I didn't have any friends, and it was tough, but like you have to let go. You have to take that leap of faith, because if you keep them in your life, you're going to keep running in those circles of people that just aren't good for you and aren't there for you. So you have to let it go. You have to take that leap of faith. But once you do, I'm telling you, if you just continue to put yourself out there, you'll find the right people.
Two things I want to add there. People have to understand that you are the average of the people who spend the most time with. We hear it all over again, but it's true. And you cannot, even if you have a lot of potential, even if you start pursuing excellence, if you're associating yourself with those people, you cannot reach your fullest potential. Like, they will always influence you, because we as human, we adapt automatically. It's a behavior that has been developed in humans. We just adapt to our surroundings. So it's impossible for you to reach your highest potential with people who don't care about it. And I wanted to say a second point, but I actually forgot it. Maybe I'll get to it later.
Well, I'll add on to that real quick while Manuel thinks about it. That is super true, because what I was saying earlier, like, me and my friends would go out, smoke weed, go on sheets runs and food runs. I mean, all of us did that. It wasn't just me or two people. It was literally, there was like 4 or 5 of us. Every single one of us did that. So once you're in a group like that, that's the dynamic. That's kind of what's normal. And I remember when I started, I wasn't even fully there yet, but starting to think about, hey, maybe like improving myself, maybe like getting into coaching. I never heard of coaching before. What is that? I wanted to explore it. And I told that to my friends, and they were like, what, like Hitch? You're going to help guys get girls? I'm like, I mean, that's like a super oversimplification of it, but yeah, like Hitch. And they just didn't, they didn't really get it. They didn't really understand it, which is fine. Like, I don't expect everybody to really get what you're trying to do, and not everybody's going to have the same vision, but you do want to be around people that fit the growth mindset that you're trying to develop. Because I'll give you another example. One of my close friends now, which I don't really have many friends, I have like 1-2 people. One of them is my brother, and we just happen to be like super tight and on the same page. The other friend that we have was a friend from high school, and the funny thing about him, even though back then we weren't really in the mindset we are now, he continued to grow and he continued to improve himself. He moved out. He got a better career, upped his income, started reading more, studying more, working out. So he was on the path of self-improvement, which is what kept that relationship going, because we were all trying to do that. So if you're in a group where you have friends, maybe you grew up with them and they are actually trying to improve, you have a better chance of them sticking around. But if you all of a sudden are the one person in your group that wants to better themselves and your rest of your friends don't, it's going to cause some friction one way or another, whether they're trying to keep up with you or you're, feeling like you have to lower your standards to be around them. So it's important to think about is who is the person you're dealing with and where are they going? Because if it's not in the same direction, it's going to be tough to keep up that friendship or relationship in general.
The second point is back, by the way. So because Ryan said he abandoned his old friends, and I basically did the same. Like, I was in a very, very low cycle. Like, those dudes were not just drinking, but taking drugs pretty much every weekend, coke and ketamine every weekend, and like it fucks you up. And those were all of my friends. And one day I was like, okay, nope, can't associate with them anymore. And that's the point, you have to be willing to go alone for a while. If those are the only friends you have, then you need to go alone. It's better to go alone than with bad company, but it shouldn't stay like this forever. Like, again, Sigma male lone wolf mentality, that's also not the solution.
Gene, you're awfully quiet.
Nothing to add. Nothing to add.
Yeah, I'll add to Manuel's point too. I kind of more or less did the same thing. Like, I had to kind of branch out from the friends that I had growing up. In similar situation, I had friends kind of getting into like some bad things. They wanted to party all the time. I had one friend that actually did get into cocaine, and I got to the point where I couldn't hang out with them every weekend. I couldn't hang out and stay in that environment because I was like, dude, this isn't what I want to be doing. And it ended up kind of getting a little, there was a little bit of a disagreement at one point because I kind of confronted him on something, and long story short, it was just kind of like a rocky ending to that relationship. But full circle moment, this was like the past, I want to say last September, I ran into him again after years. Like the last time I saw him, we were yelling at each other in my basement, and we haven't seen each other in like 6 years. And the next time I saw him was at this wedding from another friend back in the day, and we connected. And dude, completely, like, I'm not gonna say he's like a millionaire now, but he did change his life. Like, he's sober, he has a kid, he's raising a family, he's in a much better headspace. And I felt really good about that, even though at the time I had to step away. He even kind of told me, he was like, hey man, he's like, I understand why you did what you did. He's like, I understood why you had to kind of separate yourself. And that kind of gave me closure. So know that this is another perspective too. Know that even if you do step away, the friend might not know it at the time, but that might be the best thing for them. And maybe they do find themselves at some point. Maybe they do better themselves. But it's like the saying goes, we either grow together or we grow apart. So if you're not growing together with somebody, introduce some distance. Maybe you need to separate. If they continue to grow, and you might cross paths at some point again, maybe, but you can't try to bring somebody along with you if they're not willing to do it themselves. That's what I've learned.
Was that all 5?
That was all I got. All 5.
So I think we probably have a lot of similar points. Do you think I should just run through kind of my list and just kind of hit on everything, and like I'll just rapid fire, and then if we want to chime in, and then we can do that for everyone?
Yeah. If you guys want to just run through some of the stuff you wrote down, if they're the same, then we can kind of just like chop it up. But yeah, go for it.
So
I have to. Sorry for cutting you off, man, but I have to bounce because I've got a client call in a few minutes. I need to eat some food in between.
Sure thing.
Awesome, guys.
See you next time.
Good chatting. See you next time.
See you, bro.
Ciao, boys.
So the first thing is fearing failure. Like that's the easiest way to ensure it.
Yep.
I've failed countless times with everything. So like a lot of people like, oh, I don't want to fail. They want to be perfect. They don't want to experience that. But failure is a part of success. So just embrace it. And that's number one. Again, neglecting social ability. Like I said, you don't have to go to bars and whatnot to talk to girls. You don't have to. It's not weird to introduce yourself to a guy at the gym or wherever the case may be. So just smile, say hi to people, like just start learning how to function socially in the world. Because a lot of people are just as nervous as you. But they're not going to take that leap. So if you can, you'll probably connect. I'm surprised we didn't hit this, but neglecting fitness. So in relation to that, another one is start like building your habits, start them small, but start ingraining those habits, especially if you're younger. But in relation to the neglecting fitness, I got introduced to fitness playing football and lacrosse and stuff like that. But and like we would do football workouts in like middle school and high school. But around middle school, I would start doing like 3 sets of 10 push-ups, mountain climbers for like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for like 5 minutes, and like a couple other things. But that was my beginning to like actually going to the gym, like just being at home, like watching TV at night, and I would just do like 3 sets of 10, and I was like super proud of that. And then I got into like, oh, let me see how many push-ups I can do at once, and yada yada yada. I just started binging YouTube fitness, and then I went into the gym, and then like I got addicted to the gym. I stopped playing the sports, and I just got super like healthy and whatnot. And people by the end of the year, like by senior year, people were like, geez, like I was like bigger than the football players and yada yada yada. Like teachers were like, you're getting big. And I was just like, I appreciate it, yada yada yada. But like start small, and like fitness is one of the best things you could do. Just that constant challenge, that constant struggle. Like you don't need a gym membership. There's calisthenics, all different sorts of things. There's Planet Fitness, which is super cheap. YouTube has everything you'd ever need to know to learn how to do exercises and and there's free fitness programs everywhere. if you can't afford one. So just don't neglect your fitness. And then we said keeping the dead weight. That's another mistake. So that's the list I have.
Love it.
I just have one more point to add, which we didn't mention, and that's chasing fast money. It's a mistake. I'm not sure if anyone else did it, but I did it for sure. Like, it's with a lot of greed and you're making the wrong decisions. And I actually lost 35K because of it. And I'm even paying it until this day. Like, I took a credit, and I'm paying it until this day for that mistake. And it's just stupid. And it's when you're chasing fast money, and I know that people want to get rich fast. You can notice that people want to get rich fast. Those young men, they want to just 1, 2, 3 years be rich as fuck, but it's not gonna happen. So just take your time. Don't be greedy, because you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna lose money. Maybe you're gonna scam people, or maybe, for example, fast money. You could be selling drugs, putting your life in danger, and all those stupid things. So just accept the fact that it takes time.
Or investing into these courses online that tell you get rich in 60 days, land your dream girl in 10 days, or like some ridiculous like snake oil salesman selling that stuff. There's
that YouTube
endless amounts
video,
of
that YouTube ad that's like, I made $10,000 in one day doing whatever the fuck. It's like,
Yep.
Shut up, man.
Yeah, that's the thing about these courses, and that's where I think a lot of people have reservations, kind of tying it back to one of my points about asking for help, because maybe they had bought a program that was from some scammer and they wanted to get, jacked or get a girlfriend or make more money, and the program was shit. There was no actual one-on-one coaching. It was all like webinars and nothing actually that taught you anything of value. And they get burned and they waste their money. And they're like, well, I'll never work with a coach again. You're all scammers. You guys all blah, blah, blah. And that's where I think the coaching industry gets a bad rap, because I've been burned too. Like, I know what it's like. It sucks, waste your money like that and never really get anything in return, which could even lead further into that point of not wanting to ask for help or mentorship. It's like, well, you see what's out there. It's tough to trust the people on the internet that you don't even know. That's pretty much all I got. You guys have any additional points or anything you wanted to mention?
No, I'm good. This was a great stream.
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
Yeah, I think we raised a lot of good points, and I think it's cool because we're all different age groups. Like, I know I'm just about to be in my 30s. I just turned 28. Ryan, I think you're 23, 24?
23 and like a half. Yeah.
23 and a half. And Manuel, you're like 25,
24,
right?
24. Turning 25 this year in August.
Okay. Damn, how did I
know I look 35, but I'm younger.
I had no idea you were 24. Holy shit. Yeah. It's the bald.
Yeah, it's the bald and the beard.
Yeah.
Dude, when we first met, I thought you were like in your 30s. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Dang, how did I become the old head? What the hell? I thought I was younger now.
Sheen is older. He's
like 35.
I think he's like 30, 31.
No, he's 34.
Oh, really? Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, how old? Joe's a little older too, right? He's like,
I believe, yeah. Isn't he the oldest? Maybe.
I think he's in his 40s or something.
Perhaps because he already has a child, So he's probably at least as old as Sheen.
Something like that. And I know the other Ryan's the youngest. He's like, I don't even
19.
think he's 20 yet.
He's 19, yeah.
He's 19. Dang. That would be cool to have both of them on, like Ryan and Joe, because it'd be the oldest, youngest contrast. That'd be an interesting way to break it down. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I think we brought up a lot of really good points. I'll continue to just come up with ideas for the streams. I'm cool with doing Fridays again if you guys are down for that day. Like, Fridays at 8 a.m. work for me for the live streams.
Works for me as well.
Okay. Sweet. yeah, if you guys are watching, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to all of us real quick if you guys want to throw out your plugs, where to find you guys.
So my name is in the handle dating.coach.ryan on Instagram.
Same for me. I put it in there as well. It's Holistic Manhood on every platform: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, wherever.
Solid. Yeah, and you guys know where to find my stuff. It's all in the description. And then the people that had to leave early, I'll leave all their links down below if you guys want to check them out. And yeah, guys, we're gonna bounce. We got some rest of the day to kind of finish up here. Check back next week. Every week we're trying to do something on Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern time. That's the time of these streams. So we're always coming with the content. If you missed the beginning part of this, just go back and watch the recording, because there's a lot of really good information that we mentioned and really good insights that we made. But other than that, we're gonna peace out, and I'll see you boys next week.
See you, bro.
See you guys.